Presenting in front of an international audience can be very intimidating. So I'm just going to give you some tips that I've picked up along the way for how you can do that in a better way. So what makes it so intimidating is you've got multiple reasons. You've got the fact that there's a language barrier. There's also cultural barriers in between you and your audience, perhaps, and that can add a lot of stress to the situation. But if you spend the right time preparing for the presentation, and you get yourself in the right mindset, you can overcome the obstacles that come along with any presentation. I just noticed you can't really see, so I'm going to drop myself out of the picture here for just a second, in case you're trying to read along. Okay, so in this session, we're going to talk about specific tips on how you can be confident when you're presenting in any international business meeting or anything like that. So first and foremost, before you do anything, you want to take your time to do your research. Okay, it's absolutely essential to do your research. So take the time to learn about the culture and the customs of your audience. So if you're in a I'll put my picture back on there. If you're in a business where you're dealing with a lot of different cultures, that's a lot that you have to take into account. But if you're talking to people from various other societies or other cultures, if you're just like, for example, if you're from Taiwan, like you, Mandy, and you're trying to do presentations to people who are from the US, then you only really need to do some research about United States customs and United States culture, which is in and of itself not all that easy, because it is a melting pot, as we say in the United States. So by taking the time to learn about those cultures, you can tailor your presentation to the needs and the expectations of the audience. So you're going to want to tailor your presentation to your audience. Understand their business practices, their communication styles, and their values will not only show them that you respect their culture, but it also helps you to establish a connection or a rapport with them. R-A-P-P-O-R-T. No, R-A-P-O-R-T, rapport. All right. Also, you want to make sure you practice your presentation. The key to feeling confident when you're making a presentation is to be sure to practice as much as you can. I know that I've talked with Mandy and many other people about how important it is to practice your speech until you feel comfortable with the material. So you can rehearse that in front of a mirror. You can record yourself. You can present to a colleague, to a friend, to a coach like me. And this will give you an opportunity to receive feedback and then make the necessary adjustments to your presentation before the big day. That's a big deal. It's very important that you get your practice in so that you're not left without the right words, as I am right now, before you're doing when you get up to actually give the speech. Also, if you're feeling like, oh, I'm so nervous, I'm so unconfident about the presentation, by practicing in advance, a lot of those nerves will filter away. A lot of that nervousness, especially about maybe your accent, your pronunciation, your language, a lot of that will filter away because you've said it so many times, you're comfortable with it. How do I know that? Because when I was an actor, acting on stage, I used to have to memorize all of my lines for the entire show, not just my lines, but everyone else's lines, so that I knew when to come in. And that's not easy to do. To get the whole thing in your head. That's why stage presentations tend to practice for weeks in advance before they actually go on to present the show to an audience. It's not easy, but the more you practice, the more comfortable you feel, and the more natural you will come across. So you also need to remember to speak clearly and slowly. This comes from practice. So when you're practicing, practice speaking clearly and slowly. Avoid using complex language, jargon, or slang that may be difficult to understand for other non-native speakers. Now, if you're just speaking to a native English-speaking audience and you're comfortable using slang or jargon, then go right ahead. But as I said I've said before with emails and things like that, avoiding jargon and acronyms and things like that that are not familiar to your audience is very, very important. So also speaking at a moderate pace and using simple and concise sentences that will ensure that your audience can follow along. And that's really important. You want your audience to be able to follow everything you do. Now, you'll notice that I'm using my hands a lot when I'm speaking. That is because you can only see my face and you can see my hands, but you can't see the rest of my body. But when you're on a stage giving a presentation, do use appropriate body language. So body language does play an essential role in communication. You may not know this. Here's a little fun fact. Body language, when you're speaking, only about 7% of your communication is the words that you use. That's right, only about 7% of your communication overall is coming from the words that you're using. And over 55% of communication is through your facial expressions and your body language. Isn't that mind-blowing? So majority of your communication is actually what you're doing with your hands and your body and your face. So be sure that you are maintaining good eye contact with your audience. If you're doing it like I am, I try to look at the camera because I can't see your faces, unfortunately. It's not like when we're in a one-on-one class or a group class. I can't see your faces, but I can still look at the camera and you can see that I actually am trying to maintain eye contact. So the other thing is your posture. You want to stand tall and use those hands to not only point to things, like if you have hey, look, here's my picture of my logo and here is my family in the background. So not only can you point with your hands, but you can also expand your ideas with your hands and things like that. However, that being said, you want to be mindful of the cultural differences in body language. Some cultures have gestures that may suggest different meanings. For example, this is from the university that my father went to. Let me zoom in on the screen there or make it a little bit bigger. So my father went to a school called the University of Texas in Austin, and they do this as a cheer for their team, Hook 'em Horns. That's where I was born, by the way. Hook 'em Horns. UT, University of Texas, Hook 'em Horns. And because their mascot is the longhorn steer. So that's representative of the longhorns of the big cow. And so Hook 'em Horns is great if you're from Texas. But if you're from some other cultures, this is very rude to do. So be very careful, be mindful of the cultures that you're presenting to. All right. And you may have to do a little research before you go. So talk to people from that place or from that country. Now, next, not the last part of this section here, but really before you go, it's very important to keep in mind your state of mind, your mindset before you go on the stage. So be sure to take a moment before you go on stage, before you start your presentation, take a moment to breathe and relax. Take some deep breaths and calm your nerves and focus on your message, okay? Remember that your audience is there to listen to you, okay? They're not there because they're for themselves. They're there to hear what you have to say and pick up from you and gain from your knowledge. So they want you to do well. They want you to succeed. So that's a key thing to remember when you're out on that stage. Be sure to relax. And another tip that's very, very important, make sure you get lots of rest. Make sure that you're eating healthy, especially the week before and stuff like that. Part of being prepared means taking the time to rest. That will help you to keep your nerves under control. It'll keep your mindset in the right place. So keep that in mind. So let me summarize the whole thing and just say that when you're presenting to an international business meeting, even though it can be a real challenge, so I'm just going to go up here and we'll leave this. We'll leave this where it is. Oh, just bouncing all over the place. Oh my gosh, I can't get this. So the main things that I want you to take away from this is that with the right mindset, with the right preparation, you can overcome all of the challenges that we've discussed so far, all of the challenges. So make sure you do your research, practice your presentation, speak clearly and slowly, use the appropriate body language, and remember to breathe. And just by following these little tips, you'll be able to present with confidence and authority no matter where you are. Now, I have a larger article that I have written on this that's several pages long that goes into a little bit more depth on each one of these topics. But because I didn't want to be talking on one part of this presentation for 30 or 40 minutes, I thought, we'll summarize it, and that way we can get into some questions.